Tails and Scales, The Empty Throne. Chapter 17. Journey of Sauronian Hearts. If the spirits are either playing tricks or rewarding him for his deeds, Silvus cannot believe the sight of the orca-colored female wearing a brown cloak and the same amulet from before, standing in front of him. She is the same Ocia whom he met the day before the invasion, all right. Silvus finds himself at a loss for words, struggling to say something as he sees her holding her claws together, raised up to her chest. She even puts on a joyful smile, as if reuniting with a long-lost lover. Ocia then runs up to him to throw her arms around him into a tight hug, leaning her face onto his chest, making him feel awkward. Silvus feels his cheeks burn up and his tail springs up rapidly. He could not help but move his arms around to hug her back. He still looks nervous.
"Oh, Silvus, I heard what happened at Magalo,"
Ocia says, as the two raptors gently break off the hug. "You did?" Silvus replies with a questioning look, scratching the right side of his head with his claw.
"Oh yes, I heard there was fighting between Magalo and Manchestians a few weeks back. Thinking of you, I got worried that something bad happened between your family and Targan. Is it true?"
Ocia gives Silvus a concerned look, putting her claws back together, almost covering her snout. Remembering she is from Manchester, Silvus struggles regarding what to say without hurting her. Whoever told her might be a member of the army with knowledge of what is happening to his old home. He nervously turns his head to the side to see Iko and Fee come out of the wall of trees, waving at him to hurry up. "It's a long story." Silvus walks beside Ocia. "Tell you what, how about I explain everything after we leave this dreadful place?" Silvus gestures his claw at the pile of rebel corpses for Ocia to see. With a nod of agreement, Ocia lets Silvus escort her back into the trees. What Silvus does not know is that a group of familiar riders in black stands in the trees, watching him escort Ocia from behind. One rider leading has a sinister smile. "The snake is set." Back on the main road, a two-carriage caravan is seen being pulled by two snaguanas. The back carriage is filled with boxes and bags of goods waiting to be sold, while in the front sit members of Conclave who speak with Iko and Fee. Taking the helm is Nardo, who holds two leashes to steer the snaguanas on the right track. Sitting behind Nardo is Silvus, who is telling Ocia, sitting in front of him, about his adventure since leaving Magalo. "So, long story short, my mom tasked me with delivering a package, helped my uncle, and tried to defeat bandits, and even discovered a new society."
"Wow, what an adventure!"
Ocia gleams.
"You said something about a package. Can I see it?"
Without further ado, Silvus takes out the package from his back and shows it to her. Ocia leans forward, taking a further gaze at the strange long wrapping with the familiar seal.
"What do you think it is?"
she asks him, looking at the seal with a curious look. "I don't know. My mother told me not to open it until I arrive to Padalot. She thinks it is the key to saving Avalonia," Silvus explains to her, putting the package back onto his back.
"Interesting. Things between the Magalos and Manchestians must be really bad if your mother would entrust you with such a task,"
Ocia states, with a talent to her chin. The mention of Magalos and Manchestians makes Silvus uneasy, leaning his back onto the ridge of the carriage. In his mind, he really wants to tell her what actually happened. Ocia, who notices Silvus's uneasiness, asks him,
Are you okay?"
Silvus looks to see Ocia leaning toward him, with a face of concern, pinning him on a corner. A part of him does not want to lie, and another part does not want to hurt her. He feels his chest clutching up in pressure, while hearing a heartbeat inside his mind. It is like one of those stories that he read involving heroes of old, making the most difficult decisions. What exactly did he hear about the battle between Magalo and Manchester? He nervously asks her, to make sure they are on the same page.
Well, according to one of my friends, Beta Lord Targan attempted to negotiate with Beta Lady Silvera, but things went sour, forcing Targan to take action. Do you know something?
Ocia leans back with a raised brow, wanting to know why he asks such a question. Not holding anything back, Silvus decides to tell her, Ocia, I don't mean to hurt your feelings or anything, but what happened at Megalo was a hostile invasion.
That can't be true!
Ocia snaps, gaining the attention of all the passengers, including Iko and Fee, all looking at her.
Emperor Tarkin would never do such a thing!
Ocia defensively argues with hint of emotion in her voice. It is exactly what Silvus feared, yet he stays calm. I was there when it happened. I saw Targan with a large army behind him. Not to mention, he had catapults hidden behind the forest.
You gotta be under a lot of stress. I mean, for what you told me, you...
Silvus ain't lying, miss, Iko calls out, gaining Ocia's attention. She gives him a questioning glare.
And who are you? And how do you know he's telling the truth?
I'm his cousin Iko. He and I live together, as if we are brothers. Not to mention, I escaped with him and my dad, Iko explains. Ocia scans around the members of Conclave. They all have uneasy looks. It is obvious that they believe the two cousins. She looks at Fee, who just tells her with a shrug.
What? I'm a kobold who has lived underground most of her life. I know nothing of raptor politics.
Ocia looks back to Silvus with a hurt face, while he gives her an apologetic look, with his arms on his lap. She looks into his eyes to see he is not lying, yet feels bad for telling her the news. A tear or two begins to come out of her eyes, and she tells him, sobbing,
You're telling the truth.
The day after we met, I was dragged out of my bedroom to the front gates of Athera. Targan was there trying to convince my mom that the Mystatorium is corrupt. My mother refused and tried to convince him the opposite. From there, she took me to her quarters, giving me the package. Then, the catapults began to fire at the castle, forcing the Magalos to fight back. Since then, I left with my uncle and cousin to escape. That is all I know. Ocia says nothing after Silvus finishes his explanation. He sees her trying to hold back from crying. Nardo, who has been listening, asks him, looking sympathetic, Is the young lady going to be okay? Silvus looks to Nardo and tells him, I think so. Just give her some time to think about it. She'll be okay, I hope. Silvus looks back to Ocia, who has her head lowered, sobbing into her knees. Seeing how devastated she is makes him wonder if telling the truth hurts more than lying. For the rest of the ride in Lower Tricia, the passengers stay quiet. Ocia is no longer crying, but she is looking at the side, gazing at the swampy wilderness, watching a flock of Maganeras buzzing around, some tall grass trying to catch mosquitoes. Iko is seen napping, with Fee laying her head onto his lap. The passengers speak softly among themselves. Silvus looks to the sky, watching the long yellow-green leaf-covered branches of the swamp. He wonders whether the right thing, telling Ocia the truth. He wonders what his mother would have done in his place. His thoughts are interrupted when he hears a sweet voice call out to him.
Silvus?
Silvus looks back down to see Ocia looking at him with an apologetic expression. He only looks at her a bit nervous about what she had to say.
I want to say I'm very sorry for snapping you like that. I get very defensive when any raptor dares to say anything bad about Manchester.
She tells him with an apologetic tone. You are?
Truly, because you and your friends did save my life. I'll forgive you this once.
She tells Silvus, making him smile because she is feeling better, until her face turns serious and folds her arms.
However, I admit I'm still having a hard time believing your story, because Manchester is my home.
She looks up to the sky in thought.
To imagine Edward Targan doing something like that? It is just not like him.
Did he have any unusual friends or associates? Silvus asks her, remembering a shady figure who was with Targan on the day of the invasion. Ocia looks back down to his eye level with a small smile and responds.
Well, I was in Rookengrad Castle. Not long ago, Targan hired a new miscaster after exiling of the previous one due to disagreements.
Did he have a name?
I believe he calls himself Bylark when I first met him. He had this dark aura which made me uneasy. Are you implying that he might be responsible for what Targan did?
She asks, looking oddly hopeful at the possibility that her beta lord could be innocent. Despite the unusual behavior, Silvus is glad that Ocia is better now. Perhaps she seems to be a very forgiving she-raptor. However, she did mention that she was in Rookengrad Castle, which is odd. If he remembers correctly, Omegas aren't allowed in Beta's castle unless they make an appointment, get invited, or married to the family. Because she never mentioned having a clan name, he assumed she is Omega caste. You mentioned that you were in Rookengrad. Silvus tries to ask her about the castle, only to be interrupted by the sound of the carriages stopping in front of the border. He and all the passengers turn their heads to the border, expecting the captain of the border guard to return. Who goes there? The captain of the guard walks up to the ridge, along with two others. It is I, Davinchio Nardo, first Delta of a Creston, and owner of the Conclave Company, rescued by them great heroes in need. Nardo gestures his claw to Silvus and his friends. The captain turns his gaze to Silvus and smiles. Took care of them, did ya? I sure did, Captain. Now would you open up the gates? Silvus shouts back, looking proud. The captain honors the deal and orders the others to open up the gates. With a loud click, the gates of the border slowly open up, allowing the caravans to pass through. Silvus takes his first glance at the northern area of Sauronian Heart, nicknamed the Neon Forest, a nice name for a mystical forest with large trees that glow neon shades of blue, along with the light blue colored grass that covers the ground and rocky cliffs. Upon the tall grass that grows in between the trees are various colors of flowers and mushrooms, glowing white, purple, teal, or blue, giving the forest a perfect blend. It is exactly what Silvus pictured from his books. He continues to look around with wide eyes of amazement, with his jaw slowly dropping. He can see spores of white mist wisps flowing around the branches like fireflies above. To his right, he sees the mist stream glowing white on the right side of the road, radiating the spores. Turning to his left, he sees large teal-green lunate moths flying around the flowers, hoping to gather nectar.
This place is so beautiful.
Silvus hears Ocia enjoy the remarkable scenery, while the other passengers look around in opposite directions. Among them, Fee gets up, looking paralyzed at the sight. I know, right? Silvus turns his attention to Ocia. Did you know it is said that the reason why the plant life here is like this? Because there was an ignition of mist when Padalot was first born, infusing the trees, plants, and some wildlife nearby.
Like an explosion?
Ocia turns her head, looking at Silvus with amazement in her eyes. Correct. It is what we call today the growing period. Ocia gasps in response, putting her claws to her cheeks.
Wow, that must be one hell of an explosion. If so, I wonder if that is how the raptors and the precursor tribes got their mist powers.
They did. During the ignition, nearby tribes were infused, thus gaining what we call the mist gene. It is said the reason why the precursors were able to tap in mist first was because the spirits unlocked their mist gene before our ancestors. Silvus further explains to her, with a proud grin on his snout, putting his gloved claw to his hip while using the other to wiggle his finger upwards like a teacher.
That is so amazing!
Ocia beams, turning her gaze back at the forest forward.
Is there anything else you know?
Silvus is about to enter, only to be cut off from the sounds of moaning heard to the left of the caravan. He turns around to see a herd of at least 10 tall reptilian behemoths with long necks trying to eat the leaves from the oak trees, making his jaw drop. Their scales are a blend of various cool colors like blue or purple with white glowing stripes, giving the forest a soothing blend. The height of such magnificent creatures is at least 29 feet tall, compared to the common raptors who are at least 8 feet, while the kobolds are 6. Those, my friends, are Brontos. Silvus and Ocia turn to Eiko, who made the comment with a smirk and crosses and arms crossed. My mother used to tell me a lot about the wildlife of Avalonia as part of my training to be a hunter like her.
Is your mother from Jurassic? Eiko, right?
Ocia asks him, with no aggression this time. That's right. My mom would take me to parts of the wilderness to learn of wild dinosaurs that dwell like the Brontos. Eiko points to the behemoths, feasting on the leaves, while the young ones feasted on the grass. Silvus continues to look at the Brontos until he spots a large burgundy-scaled predator emerging on a cliff. It leaps down, latching its large, sharp teeth right onto a nearby elderly Bronto. The rest of the Bronto herd begins to run away, not wanting to be food. Is that what I think it is? Silvus freaks out, gazing at the beast, holding its jaw onto the struggling Bronto. When the Bronto dies, the mystery predator gets onto his feet, showing it is bipedal. It has 2 stubby arms with 3 talons on each. On its back is a patch of feathers that grows from neck to back. Lifting up its head, it makes a big roar with its sharp teeth, shown confirming its kill. That is the Tyrannorex, my friends, the apex predator, king of Sauronian heart. Eiko beams at the sight. He makes it no secret that the Tyrannorex is one of his favorite predators. The Tyranno finishes roaring, making 5 smaller Tyrannos come out of hiding from the cliffs or bushes to join in. The large one jumps off, letting the smaller ones feast on the corpse. The passengers' expressions of either fear or amazement as they watch the Tyrannos have their feast. It is not every day they see a large, majestic predator's hunt. Fee, on the other claw, looks like she's going to faint, falling to the side to be caught into Eiko's arms when he notices. I believe I remember that Tyrannorexes hunt in packs, Silvus asks his cousin, who is the wildlife expert at the moment. That's right. Unlike crocodiles from Tracia, a Tyranno's pack consists entirely of family. Eiko gets up with a fainted Fee in his arms. The others you see with him are either his sons, brothers, grandchildren, or sons-in-law. Sons-in-law? Silvus turns to Eiko, surprised. Reading about Tyrannos, they did not look the type who would not go well with other males. Unlike other territorial predators, the alpha male's job is to keep his genes going. When they have daughters to spare, they find a worthy male who gets into his territory to challenge him to a fight. In that way, the alpha male tests the intruder if he has potential genes worthy of not only being part of his pack, but also claim one of his daughters to mate. Sounds like recruiting for an army, Silvus states, turning his head back to the sight as the caravan slowly moves away from the Tyrannorex is still eating. I have to say, young Eco, your mother must be a great huntress, which is expected of an Avalonian raptor from Jurassic. Nardo comments in praise, without taking his eyes off the Snaguana. My mother would take that as a compliment. Unlike those airheads of Tricia, the Jurassic hunters are more careful at hunting, Silvus states, sitting back down, carefully laying feet gently down. With all the passengers sitting back down, Ocia turns her head to Silvus and whispers,
Your cousin's not wrong about that.
You mean how Tricia and Jurassic were founded by a disagreement of the way of hunting? Both Silvus and Ocia shared a good laugh and gazed at each other into their eyes. After a short pause, both raptors widened their eyes with smiles forming onto their snouts. Eco notices their weird behavior, making a nervous gulp, knowing what they are about to do. Is something the matter, sir? One of the conclave members who sat next to him asks him. Ignoring the question, Eco makes a face palm in annoyance and mutters, Oh, spirits, no wonder Silvus likes her, as he continues to hold on to the out-cold Fee in his arms for the remainder of the ride, hearing his cousin and the she-raptor begin to talk to each other like total nerds. Venturing deeper, Silvus and Ocia find themselves lecturing each other non-stop, filled with energy. They cannot stop talking about stories of heroes, bits of what they know about the betadoms they live in, and every time they come across a new creature, they bother Eco for some information. For example, the caravan has to stop at the sight of small turkey-looking biped reptilians with feathers covering most of their bodies and long tails rushing out of a bush filled with blue flowers, crossing the road to get a drink of the mist stream for water. Eco tells him that they are velocities, with a curious look stating that they look like the miniature version of themselves. Nardo adds that they remind him of the raptors that live in the kingdom of Fenheim, to the deep north. Silvus and Ocia continue to speak throughout the ride. The members of Conclave kept to themselves, either gazing at the wilderness or joining Silvus and Ocia's conversation. Like Nardo, wanting to give his knowledge about how his clan became the ruling clan of Creston. An hour or more later, the caravan eventually comes across to a crossroads, with two arrows putting them to a stop. One is pointing straight, reading Padalot, while the other points left, reading York. Nardo turns his head around to the passengers and tells them with a voice of delight, By the grace of the heavens, if any raptor is hungry, looks like we're in luck. You telling me all this talking is actually making me hungry? Silvus perks up with hungry eyes, looking at the arrow to York.
By the spirits, I cannot remember the last time I ate treetop steak.
Ocia joins in, looking just as hungry, slurping her tongue with her claws held together. The passengers all agree, eager for some food, before heading further. Eco, who has been snoozing the entire trip, due to boredom with Silvus and Ocia's lectures, wakes up at the mention of tri-top steak. He stretches his arms and cracks his back and says, Did some raptor mention tri-top steak? Any meat coming from Sauronian heart, tri-top or bronto, is a luxury to the other betadoms. Silvus rolls his eyes in response to his cousin's statement. Ocia makes a cute giggle at Silvus's reaction. Fee, who was lying on Eco's side hip, begins to wake up from her long coma, with a yawn stretching her arms.
What happened?
She asks with a tired voice as she looks around, seeing that they are still in a caravan cart, with her eyes still open halfway. The caravan makes its way to York. It is one of the local meat farms and butchers spread across the kingdom for the purpose of producing and trading meat products. The farm itself is a cluster of spread apart buildings resembling tree houses in the middle, surrounded by large trees. From the carriage, Silvus spots 4 ranches with the tritops themselves. The tritops are quadruped dinosaurs with stubby tails, big frilled heads with 3 horns, and a beak-like snout being used to eat the blue grass for nourishment. The stone fence they are in has large pikes carved on top in case a predator dares try to eat them. Traveling further into town, Silvus could see a lot of Omega caste farmers are very busy. Many are tending the ranches in order to lead some tritops to a nearby slaughter building to begin the meat harvesting for the season. Some are shopkeepers with stalls getting ready to sell goods for travelers or the ranchers for new ranching equipment. Making a stop right by a large building with a sign that reads York Butchery and Saloon, Silvus gets off the carriage along with the others. All 14, led by Nardo, enter the building to reveal a large tavern-like interior filled with guests seated at their tables enjoying the taste of their tri-top steaks or drumsticks. Like the townsfolk themselves, they don't seem to be worried about the war going up north. The smell of the meat being cooked from the kitchens made Silvus drool, gazing at the cooks making the meat behind a counter. He debates to himself whether to have a cooked steak, drumstick, or ribs. A waitress wearing a gown has just finished serving a few guests. She walks up to the party of 14, followed by a bow. She seems to know that the lead, Nardo, is a Delta due to seeing the fancy red scarf and hat.
Greeting, my lords. Welcome to York Butchery and Saloon. Are you here for feasting today?
She asks the trio with a polite tone. Nardo walks up to the waitress and picks up one of her claws like a gentle male. Me and my companions here are indeed in need of your brilliant tri-top delicacy. He places a kiss on her claw, making the waitress blush with a giggle.
Oh, you flatter me, my lord.
The waitress turns her head in shyness. Oh, yes, Nardo points to his other 13 companions. Perhaps I'll pay you enough golden feathers for each one.
Well then, right this way.
The waitress guides Nardo and the companions to a nearby long table. For the rest of the day, Silvus and the gang are eating up their meals, with Nardo paying, as he promised. During the meals, Ocia is seen with Fee, becoming fast friends. Finding out Fee is a princess, the inner history buff in Ocia wants to learn about kobolds. Silvus, however, is focused on eating his tri-top drumstick, enjoying every bite of it. He feels a tap on the shoulder to see Ego already finished with his tri-top ribs, using a cloth to wipe his lips. Where did you find that girl? Ego asks him with a smirk. Silvus turns his head to Ocia, who is talking to Fee instead of eating her steak. Realizing that Ego is referring to Ocia, he turns his head back to Ego and tells him, I met her back home after passing my test. He takes another bite of his drumstick. I have to say, man, you and that Ocia girl seem to have a thing for each other already. Ego leans back in his seat, with his arms behind his head, giving him a teasing look. Silvus can sense that Ego is trying to have some fun with his girl-related situation. He narrows his eyes, giving Ego a stern look with a smile, and whispers, Says the lover boy eyeing a princess. I don't know what you're talking about. Ego perks up, with flustered cheeks, turning his head away in denial, making Silvus laugh. What better way to tease back than poke fun at one's hypocrisy? End of chapter 17. Please leave a like, a comment, and please subscribe for any more channels. Bye.